everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is Rob here at Smirking Gun Reviews, back to do more Lovecraft Country. We're on Season 1, Episode 6. It is called I Am. Or is it 7? I think it's 7. It's right behind me. And while I'm making this, I'm not... Yes, I shaved, and I'm not ready for this. So, I haven't shaved my beard, really, in a while. So it's as weird for me as it is for everybody else. It's coming back right away. Alright, I just needed to tear down. So this episode, and I've said before in the past about this show that I feel kind of ill-equipped to talk about it at times. No more so than in this episode. Because I'm just some dumb white guy. This is about really important stuff that's not just about African Americans. It's about black women. It's about women in general. It's about finding your power and your strength and things that people are going to go, it's so much more than that and you don't understand fully. And it's like, you're right. I absolutely don't. This episode was a trip and a half. Once you hit the halfway mark of this episode, it goes off on a whole other tangent that I was really trying to just keep up. It is very beautifully done. It is very poetic. It ends as lots of these episodes end with a voiceover. And in this one, you know, it talks about black people being myths. You're not real. And I gotta say, I'm kind of floored by it. It is one of those episodes that I really wish I had more time to just sit, you know, take this notepad and not just write the notes from the episode, but like just start doing some hardcore research into so many things that were happening in this episode. But it's incredible. And this is like Hippolyta's big episode, and you know, she's not Atticus, she's not Letty, she's not even Montrose, or at least up until this point. She has been the side character. She's been the woman that is playing catch up. She's being the woman who's being lied to about what really happened to her husband. She's, you know, she's not aware as much of what is going on at all as much as our other characters are. And now she's on a whole other level than they are. Literally. She basically, I mean, let's just face it, she kind of becomes like her own Dr. Manhattan here. But it starts out simply enough. And by the way, I want to thank everybody that has been watching these. I really appreciate it. You know, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and all that blah, 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 blah. So anyway, I mean, we start at the beginning, you know, 3 days ago it says, where she's seeing the aftermath of what happened in episode 10, where the whole place basically crumbled in on itself, caught on fire. And, you know, she's still having problems with the orrery. And nobody but Christina knows that she has it. And this was kind of her mission to get it. Now, we don't go any further than that really with this, other than she figures it out. She figures she's on her side. She realizes she needs to twist the axes, and it turns on, and a key pops out, and there's a message that says, every beginning is in time and every limit of extension in space. Okay. I sat here trying to figure that out for a while. I even attempted to, I was going to look it up, but I just don't have the time. I also want to mention that I really love the title cards for this show. They're very, very cool. But we find out definitively what is going on with Christina. William's dead. There is no two of them at the same time. And so was the lady who, I keep calling her the evil dog woman. They both are dead. Christina's using their bodies to make potions so that they can look like them. And that she was using it, you know, to be a man in a woman in a man's world pretending to be a man, because the sheriff and all those guys, they're the ones who killed William. She wants revenge for it and more. She wants power. She wants magic. She wants all the things that she was told she can't have. Um, and while, that on the surface, if somebody is being held back by like an authoritarian figures like men, um, they deserve to have a chance at it. She, though, I feel like, she's that person, like, you live long enough, you either die the hero or live long enough to see yourself become a villain. Dark Knight, reference there, but really, I still say she's a villain. I still say that whatever she's driving forwards towards, it's not what everybody else is going to want in the end. Um, and that she says that she cares about Ruby, that what was coming out of William's mouth was her heart. Now, maybe she likes Ruby, maybe she doesn't. I still don't trust that she ultimately doesn't have her own ends, that if Ruby were to get in her way, would just be pushed out of the way. Like right now, she's just trying to get at that orrery, and Christina is a way in. Once she gets it, if she gets it, what purpose would Ruby have for her anymore? Um, and there's a lot of no more secrets. She wants to know everything. Um, and then for as far as Letty and Atticus as part of this story goes, I mean, Letty's now having the same dream as Atticus was or is, except in hers, she grabs her belly, boom, bang, zoom. You know that's a pregnancy thing, so you figure that's going to play a huge thing. She starts having, pregnancy symptoms. She smells things weird and everything. Um, Atticus is trying to translate the book, the pages that he has. And during their conversation, they talk about how Hannah, the woman that's related to them, to Atticus, took the book of names out. Christina's looking for pages. They can find the whole book. So Atticus, though, he also has to go to St. Louis. That's where his mother comes from. So they start thinking maybe the magic is coming from there. And so he goes to visit relatives there, tries to find the book, because Letty stays behind to try to make up with Ruby, which is another nice little scene, but I still feel like Ruby's there for the orrery. But unfortunately, for Ruby, Letty finds it first and lets Atticus know that Hippolyta has been working on this thing. She didn't tell anybody either. Well, hey, they're not telling her the full dope either, so she's holding back as well. But what she doesn't know is that she's in over her head. And she gets to the lighthouse place, or not the lighthouse, but the telescope, the observatory. And she starts doing some like serious like Goodwill Hunting math all of a sudden. And I imagine that this is part of her background, right? But I thought that was really, really cool. The woman on the motorcycle, I feel like that's an Easter egg towards something. They do a lot of Easter eggs on this show. And I feel like, because I was waiting for it to be called back before I really mentioned it, but it doesn't get called back. But it feels like something, like some sort of iconic symbol. But maybe it's not. Maybe it's just a couple of ladies having a nice road trip. They also bring up the Tulsa Massacre in here too, which is something that Watchmen brings up a lot. That the book was burned. Everything was burned in the Tulsa Massacre. But the cops arrive. The whole thing goes, backwards. Atticus arrives to help her, but the machine gets damaged. It starts making these portals, and she kills one of the cops. Atticus throws one of them through a portal, and Hippolyta gets taken through. And that's when it turns into Doctor Strange level meets David Lynch, Lovecraft, where she ends up on some world taken by some machine men to meet a giant afroed woman. Maybe she's a woman. I assume that she's probably not even just a woman. She's almost like a god. Some enlightened being that is way past us. And that's where we get into like the whole identity of Hippolyta and And, because the person, the being says, I am. What are you? Name yourself. And she goes back in time to be a dancer with Josephine Baker. And I feel like this whole thing was like learning and training for Hippolyta to become a strong person in reality. And I thought that's kind of where they were headed with it. And maybe that's where they'll end up being, but throughout her thing, she hangs out with Josephine Baker. She talks about how she wants she's really hating some white people, wishes she could kill them. And it has a really great line that says, "A smart way to lynch me without noticing the news." That was a brilliant line. But then after she feels like she's learned everything she's going to learn, she yells out that I am Hippolyta, right? And she literally goes back to that time period and learns how to fight, to be a warrior. And that's when I was really thinking, okay, she's learned some lessons back in the early 20th, 1900s. Now she's going back and learning to be a warrior. And when she figures that out, and she kills a bunch of soldiers that I guess maybe British soldiers. I don't even know. I don't even know if this is supposed to be even a real situation. I think it is. I think it's based on historical fact. That she calls herself out as this surge of soldiers comes, rushing towards her. That she is Hippolyta Freeman, George's wife. And we get a nice return of George for a second, where she talks about her role as his wife and how, she was shrinking. She wasn't seen. He was, to fit her needs, she was shrinking as a person. She has all this smarts, all these her own possibilities and her own dreams. And to be just his wife, she became lesser than. And I know that I'm not putting it in as poetic ways as I could. But he sees her and he's like, is this real? If this is happening, if you're on some other planet, am I even here? Is this even really happening? And I started wondering that myself. Because then, they end up on a distant planet that looks like, something out of I always forget the name of this, No Man's Sky. And we start getting the narration about the myths and of black people being myths. And she becomes like this other entity. She's given the opportunity to join the ranks of these enlightened beings. And I think she said she was going back, but she doesn't come back. All of a sudden it's Atticus there on the floor of the observatory with a book that says Lovecraft Country by George Freeman. He turns off the machine as the cops are coming, and he leaves behind the comic book because he didn't know it was there by Hippolyta's daughter. And so with the stinger from next week, we know that that's going to get even nuttier because they interrogate the daughter, and she's got like I think the Jackie Robinson hat on. And I know I'm kind of pushing through this faster, but only because I literally had a hard time keeping up with this one. This episode is saying a lot of stuff that's going to take a lot more than just some little review for me to sink in. I'm going to need to watch this episode 2 or 3 times, and I'm going to start having to take some of the things that they put in this book, just probably for next week's review, to bring up all the things that I learned just from watching this show. And that's great. If you can learn new things and become a more enlightened person, that's great. Television doesn't have to just be, sex and violence and courtroom dramas and shit like that. So anyway, we'll be back next week with episode 8. There's only 3 episodes left. And every single episode, man, just keeps finding new ways to drop my jaw right to the floor. So again, if you like this review, please hit the like button, comment, share, subscribe, hit the bell for all notifications. I swear my beard's growing back sooner rather than later. And we'll see you guys on the next episode. Bye.